Your soulmate left you one final letter. What it says will break your heart. My beloved child. Before the sun rose today, a letter with no return address found its way to you. It carried only your name, written in handwriting your heart recognized before your eyes did. The paper was old, but the ink looked as if it had dried only moments ago. You almost walked away from it. Something inside you whispered that opening it would change everything. Why would someone leave a final letter instead of speaking face to face? What could possibly be so painful that it had to be hidden between folded pages? Don't skip. The first sentence isn't the one that will break your heart. It's the last. And every word before it exists to prepare you for a truth you've been living beside without ever seeing. As your fingers unfold the page, you notice one strange detail. The corners are stained, not by rain, but by tears that had dried long before the letter reached you. Someone cried while writing this. The only question is, who? The letter begins gently, almost as if the writer is afraid you'll stop reading. If these words have reached you, then I ran out of courage before I ran out of love. Your heartbeat changes. Suddenly, memories you buried years ago begin returning one by one. The conversation that ended too quickly. The goodbye that never made sense. The silence that always felt heavier than anger. Then another line appears. You believed I left because I stopped choosing you. That was never the truth. Every sentence pulls another hidden thread from your past until you begin wondering if everything you believed about this connection was built on a misunderstanding. Stay till the end, because the next page doesn't offer comfort. It opens a door that was meant to remain locked forever. Before you can turn it, one folded photograph slips from inside the envelope, landing face down on the floor. For a long moment, you can't bring yourself to pick it up. Why would a photograph be hidden inside a farewell letter? What was so important that words alone couldn't explain it? When you finally turn it over, your breath catches. It's a picture from a day you remember clearly, except something is different. Someone is standing in the background where you always believed no one had been. They were watching from a distance, never approaching, never calling your name. On the back of the photo, only 7 words are written. I was closer than you ever knew. Suddenly, the entire letter feels different. This isn't simply an apology. It isn't even a goodbye. It's evidence that your soulmate carried a secret through every moment you shared, and the next page promises to reveal the reason they believed telling you the truth would destroy both of your lives. The photograph refuses to leave your mind. You study every corner again, hoping your eyes made a mistake, but they didn't. The figure in the background is real. They aren't smiling. They aren't hiding. They are simply watching, as if they desperately wanted to walk toward you but couldn't take another step. You flip the picture over once more, expecting another clue, but there is nothing except those 7 haunting words. Then your attention returns to the letter. The next page feels heavier than the first, almost as though every sentence carries years of silence inside it. Before reading another line, you hesitate. Deep down, you already sense that whatever comes next will force you to question every moment you thought you understood. Something huge is waiting for you, and there is no turning back now. The handwriting grows less steady, as though the writer struggled to keep the pen from shaking. There is one memory you replay over and over, the letter says. You remember me walking away. But what you never saw was that I turned around after only a few steps. Your heart races. Could that really be true? The letter continues, revealing that they stood there for several minutes, hoping you would look back just once. They waited for a sign, any sign, believing that one glance would give them the courage to return. But neither of you turned around. Two people stood only a short distance apart, separated not by miles, but by fear. That single moment became the beginning of years filled with unanswered questions. And then another sentence appears that feels impossible to ignore. Someone wanted us to believe that silence was our only choice. You stop reading. Those words echo louder than anything else in the letter. Who could have wanted that? Was someone truly influencing everything from the shadows, or is there another explanation hidden between these lines? As you search the page again, you notice something you somehow missed before. Several words have been lightly underlined. Not enough to catch your eye at first, but impossible to overlook now. When you read only those underlined words together, they form a separate message entirely. It isn't an accident. It isn't poetry. It's a warning. Don't believe the story you were told. Suddenly, the farewell letter no longer feels like the end of a relationship. It feels like the beginning of a mystery your soulmate was too afraid to reveal until now, and the next page contains the one name they never wanted you to discover. Your eyes remain fixed on the final line. The one name they never wanted you to discover. For several long seconds, you can't bring yourself to turn the page. Every instinct tells you that once you know this name, nothing about your past will ever feel the same again. The silence around you becomes almost unbearable. Then, with one slow breath, you lift the corner of the paper. Instead of a name, you find a single sentence written much larger than everything before it. Please don't hate them before you know the whole story. That wasn't what you expected. If someone truly stood between you and your soulmate, why would they deserve compassion? Why would the writer ask you to protect the very person who seemed responsible for so much heartbreak? The mystery has only grown deeper. The letter continues with painful honesty. I blamed them for a long time, it says. It was easier than admitting I was afraid. Those words strike harder than anything you've read so far. Suddenly, the story shifts. This wasn't simply about another person. It was about fear, hesitation, and the choices people make when they believe love might not survive the truth. Your soulmate explains that every time they tried to tell you everything, another voice inside whispered that you would walk away forever. So they kept delaying the conversation, convincing themselves there would always be another tomorrow. But tomorrow kept moving further away until it disappeared completely. Don't skip. The next few lines reveal that the greatest mistake wasn't leaving, it was believing silence could protect the one they loved. As you reach the bottom of the page, a folded piece of paper slips from inside the letter. It isn't another photograph. It isn't another goodbye. It's a list of dates. At first they seem random, but then one by one they begin matching moments you remember with perfect clarity: the day you unexpectedly changed your plans, the afternoon you felt someone watching without ever seeing who it was, the evening you almost received a message that never arrived. Next to every date is the same handwritten note, "I was there." Your heartbeat quickens. Could they really have been closer than you ever imagined all those times? Or is there an even deeper reason these dates were carefully preserved? You turn the page again, and the very first line waiting for you changes everything. There is one meeting you don't remember, because it was never supposed to happen. The words refuse to leave your thoughts. There is one meeting you don't remember, because it was never supposed to happen. You read the sentence again, slower this time, hoping it will somehow make more sense. But it only raises another question. How could you meet someone and have no memory of it? The letter explains that it wasn't because you forgot. It was because the moment was so brief, so unexpected, that neither of you realized its importance until much later. Your soulmate writes that fate sometimes whispers instead of shouting, and the quietest moments often become the ones that change everything. Stay with this story, because what happened during that forgotten encounter explains why your paths kept crossing even when both of you believed the connection was over. The next paragraph of the letter paints a picture so vivid you can almost see it. It describes a crowded place filled with unfamiliar faces, where people hurried past without noticing one another. You were there for an ordinary reason. Your soulmate was there for a completely different one. Neither of you planned to meet. Yet for a single heartbeat, your eyes met across the room. You looked away first, thinking they were a stranger. They froze, convinced they should call your name, but fear wrapped itself around every word they wanted to say. Before they gathered the courage, the crowd carried you in opposite directions. I watched you disappear, the letter says. And I told myself that if destiny truly wanted us together, we would find each other again. Those words became the excuse that kept them silent for far too long. Then comes the page that feels different from all the others. The handwriting is uneven, as though every sentence cost more strength than the last. This is the part one never wanted you to read, your soulmate admits. Because once you know this, you'll understand why I kept pretending everything was fine. Your pulse quickens as your eyes move to the final lines. They reveal that shortly after that forgotten meeting, someone approached your soulmate with information about you, information that sounded so convincing, so detailed, that they believed every word without questioning it. They never asked if it was true. They never gave you the chance to explain. They simply carried that belief in silence, letting it shape every decision that followed. And just before the page ends, one final sentence appears, underlined with trembling hands. The person who told me that story has finally confessed, and what they admitted changes everything you thought you knew. The final sentence hangs in the air long after you've finished reading it. The person who told me that story has finally confessed. You stare at those words, trying to imagine what kind of confession could carry enough weight to rewrite years of silence. Was it a lie? A misunderstanding? Or something far more complicated? You slowly unfold the next page and immediately notice the handwriting has changed. It isn't your soulmate's. The ink is darker, the letters are sharper, almost as if someone wrote them with a heavy heart and an unsteady conscience. At the top of the page are 5 simple words. This is my responsibility now. Your breath catches. Whoever wrote this wasn't defending themselves. They were finally ready to tell the truth. The confession begins without excuses. I believed I was protecting both of you, it reads. Instead, I became the reason two hearts kept searching for answers they should have shared with each other. Every sentence feels painfully honest. The writer admits they withheld conversations, passed along assumptions as facts, and allowed fear to grow where honesty should have existed. They never expected those choices to echo through so many years. They thought time would quietly erase the damage. Instead, time only buried it deeper. Your soulmate had trusted those words without ever asking you what was true, and you had interpreted their silence as rejection. Two different stories were being lived at the same time, while neither of you knew the other was trapped inside a completely different version of reality. Don't skip. The next paragraph contains the one detail the writer avoided for the longest time. Near the bottom of the page, the confession becomes deeply personal. There was one envelope, the writer admits, that was never supposed to disappear. Your heart pounds. Another letter? They explain that years ago, your soulmate had written to you long before this final farewell, a letter filled not with goodbye, but with hope, honesty, and a chance to begin again. It was never delivered. It remained hidden, forgotten in a place no one thought to search until recently. Attached to the confession is a small, sealed envelope, its edges worn by time but its seal still unbroken. Across the front, in the familiar handwriting you've already come to recognize, are 6 words that make your hands tremble. Please read this before judging me. Suddenly, you realize the heartbreaking letter you've been reading may not have been the first message your soulmate tried to send, only the last. The sealed envelope feels impossibly light, yet your hands struggle to hold it steady. For years, this message existed without ever reaching you. How many nights could have ended differently if these words had arrived when they were written? You trace the faded seal with your thumb, almost afraid that breaking it will also break the version of the past you've carried for so long. At last, you open it. The paper inside is noticeably older than every page you've read before. The ink has softened with time, but the opening line remains perfectly clear. If you're reading this, then somehow hope found a way back to you. You stop breathing for a moment. This wasn't a farewell at all. It was the beginning of the conversation that should have happened years ago. The letter is filled with the honesty your soulmate never found the courage to speak aloud. I wanted to tell you the truth the day we drifted apart, they write. But every hour I waited made the truth feel heavier. They describe countless moments when they almost reached out. Messages typed and erased, phone calls ended before they rang, unexpected places they visited simply because there was a chance you might be there. More than once, they stood only a few steps away without letting you know. Not because they stopped caring, but because they feared reopening a wound they believed you had already healed. Then one sentence quietly changes everything. The hardest part wasn't losing you. It was believing that my silence convinced you I never loved you. Stay till the end, because the final page hidden inside this envelope carries something far more unexpected than an explanation. As you carefully lift the last folded sheet, something small slips into your lap. It isn't another photograph or another letter. It's a pressed flower, delicate despite the passing years, wrapped inside a piece of tissue paper. Beneath it, a handwritten note explains why it was preserved. This was meant to be given to you on the day I finally found the courage to tell you everything. Your eyes return to the flower, and suddenly you understand it was never about the flower itself. It was about the day that never came. But just as you think you've uncovered every secret, one final line waits at the bottom of the page, written in a different shade of ink than the rest. If this envelope has finally reached you, then someone has already begun searching for you, because my story did not end when this letter was written. You read that final sentence again, slower than before. Someone has already begun searching for you. The words don't sound dramatic. They sound certain. Your mind races through every possibility. Who could it be? Why now, after so much time has passed? You turn the page over, expecting another explanation, but there is nothing except a faint impression left by the pressure of a pen. Holding the paper toward the light, hidden writing begins to emerge. It isn't a complete paragraph. It's a series of places, each crossed out except one. At the bottom, a single note has been added. If they still remember, they'll know exactly where to look. Your heartbeat quickens. This letter was never meant to stay inside an envelope forever. It was meant to lead someone to a place where a forgotten promise was waiting. The next sheet explains why those locations matter. Years ago, before fear and silence created distance, you and your soulmate shared small conversations that seemed ordinary at the time. A favorite bench. A quiet street. A little corner where the world always felt slower. Your soulmate admits they secretly chose one place as a promise to themselves. If I ever found the courage again, they wrote, that is where I would begin. They returned more than once, never knowing if you would appear. Sometimes they waited only a few minutes. Sometimes they stayed until the sky changed color. Every visit ended the same way, with hope fading into another unanswered day. Yet they kept going back because they couldn't let themselves believe the story had truly ended. Don't skip. The next page reveals why those visits suddenly stopped without warning. You unfold the final page inside the bundle, expecting another confession, but instead you find a date circled in trembling ink. Underneath it, your soulmate has written, "This was the day everything changed." They explain that on that morning they finally decided to stop hiding, to tell you everything, and to place every unanswered question between the two of you instead of carrying them alone. But before they could take that first step, unexpected news reached them, news that convinced them you had already moved on and found happiness elsewhere. Rather than risk reopening your life, they stepped back one final time, believing their silence had become the kindest gift they could offer. Then, beneath that heartbreaking admission, one sentence stands alone, written more boldly than anything before it: "The news I believed was never true, and the proof has only just been uncovered." The moment you read those final words, everything inside you shifts. The proof has only just been uncovered. For so long, every decision seemed permanent, every goodbye unavoidable. But now the foundation beneath those memories begins to crack. If the news your soulmate believed was false, then every painful choice that followed was built on something that never existed. You reach for the final folded pages hidden beneath the others. They feel newer than the rest, as though they were added long after the original letter was finished. Someone returned to this story. Someone discovered the truth too late. As you unfold the first page, a single sentence greets you: I spent years apologizing to the wrong memory because I never knew the real one. The writing reveals that your soulmate eventually learned how the misunderstanding had begun. A simple assumption had been repeated so many times that it became accepted as fact. No one stopped to question it. No one thought to ask you. The silence between you wasn't created by a lack of love. It was built from unanswered questions, misplaced certainty, and moments when fear spoke louder than honesty. Your soulmate admits they searched for evidence that would finally separate truth from rumor. It took years, but they found it. Old messages that had never been delivered. Conversations remembered differently by different people. Tiny pieces that meant nothing alone but revealed everything when placed together. The story that had controlled both of your lives suddenly collapsed under the weight of the truth. Stay till the end, because the last page isn't another confession. It's a decision that changes the meaning of every page you've read so far. You carefully unfold the final sheet, expecting another goodbye, but the words surprise you. If you are holding this letter, then I no longer want my silence to be the last thing you remember about me. There are no dramatic promises. No impossible requests. Only one final wish written with remorse.